Hello, class. Today we mainly study crisis management related content. By learning, we understand the crisis correctly, understand the basics of crisis management, and master some methods of crisis management. Let's start with whether it's Bill Gates and 长瑞明任正非 or Michael Dell. All have some corresponding description of the crisis. In fact, we all know the crisis. What is it? It could happen at any time. So let's look at it first. Crisis management is a concept of it. What is a crisis? So the crisis, it refers to a potential disaster. It's a matter of life or death. For small and medium-sized enterprises, a crisis is due to the actions of the business itself or the public. Sudden events that led to deterioration of the organizational environment. Crisis management, it refers to the use of scientific forecasting and decision-making to revise reasonable crisis contingency plans. And in the midst of the crisis, to give full play and use such a scientific means, thus reducing the risk to the organization and the public, bring about a negative impact on some. Go on to seek public understanding of the organization and build it up again. A management function that maintains the image of an organization. So we emphasize crisis management in this place. Is any one of our enterprises have to have a management function? So let's see. What are the types of crises? So generally speaking, organizational self-behavior to harm the social interests caused by the crisis. This is the first type. The second type is a crisis caused by an unexpected catastrophic event. The third type, it's the organization's intention and caused the crisis. The fourth is the crisis caused by negative reports of public opinion. The fifth type is the competitor of the enterprise, or individually some hostile public. A crisis caused by vandalism. It is mainly divided into these 5 types. Through these 5 types of understanding, let's see, during the crisis management process, what are its characteristics? First, from the previous concept of crisis, we can know a crisis can be sudden. Second, it has a strong impact. The third is our crisis usually cause serious harm. These are the 3 characteristics of crisis management. After an understanding of these characteristics, we need to analyze some causes of the crisis. First of all, in our cause analysis, we put it in 1. An analysis of the internal causes of the enterprise. Let's start with the internal aspects of the enterprise. What will cause the crisis of the enterprise? First, a decision mistake within the enterprise. This is usually due to the company itself, caused by the crisis. The second is brought about by the mismanagement of enterprises. The third reason is the low quality of our personnel. The last one comes from internal causes, mainly refers to the failure to establish normal order. Such a number of communication management channels. This is an analysis from the internal causes. Good. Since there are some internal reasons, there are external reasons, too. So there are some external reasons. There are mainly the first, force majeure. The second factor is the policy system. Third, external factor. The enterprise crisis is caused by some social factors. After we go through the analysis of the causes of the crisis, take a look at what are the usual processes of crisis. So generally speaking, we have 4 processes. Crises usually have an incubation period. The second, after the incubation period, It's going to have a breakout period, then there is a processing period after an outbreak. Finally, through reasonable treatment and correction, into our recovery period. Specific crisis management procedures and techniques. So let's look at that. First, in dealing with our crisis, we must first grasp the following principles. The first principle, when dealing with a corporate crisis, we must pay attention to maintaining the reputation of the enterprise. So the second principle, when the crisis happens, be sure to react quickly. The third principle of crisis management. It's called sincerity and candor. Finally, we must adhere to the principle of humanism. This is us doing crisis management. A principle of program handling. What procedures do we have to deal with it? Let's go ahead and see. So actually after what we just learned, we all know. Crisis management, it has 4 procedures. How should we do each program? First, when our crisis is latent, we are mainly carried on preventive crisis management. Nip it in the bud. The second, when we were in the outbreak and processing phase. This process of outbreak and processing, it's mostly reactive crisis management. Reactive crisis management. So the third one, in recovery, what do we do during the recovery period? Feedback crisis management. So let's see. During the crisis management process, what are our strategies? So these strategies, it also requires us to deal with the crisis. Something to master. Let's look at the first one. When we were dealing with the crisis, just talked about maintaining the credibility of the company, safeguard the interests of the enterprise. That's why we need to control public opinion. Try to win over the public community. 2. The cooperation of the authorities. Negotiate a solution to the crisis. Simultaneous. Third, we need timely publicity. Some practical and effective actions to deal with the crisis. And a very important point, it's the leaders of the organization who take matters into their own hands. To catch this thing myself. This is enough to show that we are in crisis management. Our leadership. Our leading man. A degree of emphasis. So in this case, leadership involvement. He spoke about the intensity of crisis management. It'll be stronger. Good. So in the end, one strategy we need to pay attention to. It's about naming spokespeople for the news. So unified external statement. Unified voice. We cannot say a word to this leader. One word from the leader. We must have a unified press secretary. Focus on responding and making a statement. In this crisis management process, we have a unified attitude as a business. This is what we need to pay attention to. A strategic question. So after learning this, the study of this class, we understand. In this wave of market economy, any one enterprise, crises can happen anywhere at any time. So we talk about him having a sudden. Such a property. Sudden is not. So we talked about it. Enterprises are in the process of coping with the crisis. Some corresponding measures must be taken. Then adopt one of these measures, so that enterprises can better establish a good image. Meanwhile, can establish a sense of crisis. It also allows us to prevent problems before they happen. It is also us as a modern enterprise. A problem that should be paid attention to. Therefore, we master the crisis, a type of crisis, cause analysis, and study a process of crisis and so on. Including we also learn some concepts of crisis management, features and some tips for crisis management procedures. Classmates, above, that's all we're going to talk about in this class. Thank you for watching.